Klaus Kinski, a genius, a monster, and pure chaos. Werner Herzog, his frequent collaborator, called him a great pestilence, and that barely scratches the surface. On-set outbursts so violent, even an indigenous tribe offered to kill him for Herzog. His career was a storm of rage, and after his death in 1991, darker revelations sealed his infamy. This is the wild, unsettling tale of Klaus Kinski. Who is Klaus Kinski? Honestly, that's a question with no easy answer. His career, spanning 1948 to 1989, was a whirlwind of over 130 films, 5 of which were unforgettable collaborations with Werner Herzog. He even had a small but striking role in For a Few Dollars More, part of the iconic Man with No Name trilogy. But Kinski wasn't just about movies. He owned the stage in countless theater productions, released over 20 spoken word albums reciting poetry, and took his one-man show, Jesus Christ Savior, on tour, delivering fiery monologues as Jesus himself. Oh, we'll get to that later. While his outrageous behavior earned him a cult following that fueled his later projects, Kinski's legacy isn't just about his art. It's a chaotic blend of brilliance, madness, and controversy that leaves us asking, was he a genius, a menace, or something else entirely? Take a moment to immerse yourself in the chaos of Klaus Kinski's life. Grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into this wild journey together. Born in Poland to Polish-German parents, Klaus Kinski's early life was a struggle. His family moved to Berlin in 1931, where they endured extreme poverty during the Great Depression. By 1943, at just 17, Kinski was conscripted into the German armed forces as a paratrooper during World War II. His first taste of combat came in the winter of 1944 in German-occupied Netherlands, where he was captured by the British Army on his second day of action. But of course, Kinski couldn't keep his story simple. In his memoirs, he claimed he deserted the German army, was recaptured, sentenced to death, escaped into the woods, and was ultimately shot and captured by British forces. Whether fact or embellishment, his time as a British prisoner of war was just the beginning of the chaos that would define his life. While a British prisoner of war, Klaus Kinski reportedly began his acting career in makeshift productions staged by fellow captives. At least, that's the version Kinski liked to tell. According to Werner Herzog, however, much of this, and many other stories in Kinski's 1988 autobiography, was pure fabrication. In Herzog's 1999 documentary, My Best Fiend, he revealed that Kinski grew up in an upper-middle-class household, not the poverty-stricken background he described. With a nurse for a mother and a pharmacist for a father, Kinski's upbringing was far more stable than the chaos he claimed. Kinski's memoir was a roller coaster of sensationalism, rife with shocking allegations, including incestuous abuse, most of which Herzog believed were invented. Kinski himself admitted he exaggerated to sell books, famously telling Herzog that no one wants to read about harmony, they want dirt. And yet, the memoir wasn't the only arena where Kinski blurred the line between reality and fiction. By 1950, his erratic behavior had escalated dangerously. He stalked and attempted to strangle his theatrical sponsor, landing him in a psychiatric hospital for 3 days. Initially suspected of schizophrenia, he was later diagnosed with psychopathy, or antisocial personality disorder. This diagnosis, combined with his mental instability, led to volatile outbursts on film sets, suicide attempts, and a struggle to secure steady roles, setting the stage for the chaotic and infamous career that followed. By 1955, Kinski's luck began to turn, and the 1960s and 70s saw him carving a niche in European B-movies, what we'd now call straight-to-DVD films. Among his notable roles of the era were small but striking parts in Dr. Zhivago and For a Few Dollars More. After moving to Italy in the late 60s, Kinski became a familiar face in spaghetti westerns. Though his roles were minor, they paid handsomely, and he finally found steady work. In 1971, Kinski returned to Germany for what he hoped would be a career-defining moment, his Jesus Christ Savior show. Promoted as a 100-performance worldwide tour, it drew hype thanks to his spoken word albums and his reputation as a fiery, unpredictable artist. The show featured Kinski's modern retelling of the Gospels, delivered as if he himself were Jesus. But when he took the stage in West Berlin on November 20th, 1971, chaos erupted. The audience, numbering between 3,000 and 5,000, quickly turned hostile, accusing Kinski of proclaiming himself the Messiah. Taunts like Jesus isn't named Kinski, and she ought to give us more flew from the crowd, sparking Kinski's infamous temper. He dropped the Jesus act entirely, screaming, "Dirty scum! Vermin! Shut your traps at the hecklers!" The scene devolved into chaos, with audience members storming the stage to confront him. Kinski alternated between insults, breakdowns, and attempts to continue performing for a smaller group on the side of the stage. The show ended in disaster, with chants of Kinski as a racist filling the hall and police stepping in to disperse the crowd. Headlines like "Berliners enraged by actor's portrayal of Jesus" even made the New York Times. Though briefly sympathetic to the misunderstood performance, the public soon lost patience. The Jesus Christ Savior tour was cut short, leaving behind another chapter in Kinski's tumultuous career. After the chaos of Jesus Christ Savior, Klaus Kinski stepped into what would become the defining partnership of his career, his collaborations with Werner Herzog. Together, they crafted 5 iconic films: Aguirre, The Wrath of God, Nosferatu the Vampire, Wojciech, Fitzcarraldo, and Cobra Verde. Each of these productions was as tumultuous as Kinski himself, their behind-the-scenes drama now legendary thanks to Herzog's documentary, My Best Fiend. But long before they worked together on set, Kinski and Herzog shared an unusual history that set the stage for their explosive dynamic. Their connection began when Herzog was just 14, and Kinski, already a volatile personality, was 30. Both lived in a boarding house where Herzog's family occupied a single room, and Kinski's antics quickly became infamous. Herzog vividly recalls Kinski filling his room with leaves up to his knees, flying into destructive rages over trivial matters, and once locking himself in a bathroom for 2 days, smashing every bit of porcelain into fine shards. "You could sift it with a tennis racket," Herzog later said. Even Kinski's interactions with others were loaded with chaos. When a theater critic praised his performance in a play, calling him outstanding and extraordinary, Kinski didn't thank him. Instead, he hurled potatoes and cutlery at the man, screaming, "I was not excellent. I was not extraordinary. I was monumental. I was epical." It was clear from early on that Kinski's ego and temper were forces of nature. Despite these early warning signs, Herzog saw something remarkable in Kinski. At 15, Herzog watched him in Children, Mothers, and a General, mesmerized by a single scene where Kinski's character wakes up. That brief but powerful moment stayed with Herzog and ultimately led to him casting Kinski years later. What followed were 5 films that tested everyone involved. The productions were infamous for Kinski's antics, with cast and crew members universally dreading his involvement. His temper and erratic behavior were so unbearable that colleagues openly relished any scene where they were required to harm him. It was a level of animosity rarely seen in filmmaking, but such was the price of working with Klaus Kinski. Now, let's delve into the madness of these 5 legendary productions, each a masterpiece on screen, but a battlefield behind the scenes. We begin with Aguirre, The Wrath of God, Klaus Kinski's first collaboration with Werner Herzog, released in 1972. The film, an epic historical drama, cast Kinski as a 16th-century Spanish soldier leading a doomed expedition of conquistadors down the Amazon River in search of the legendary city of El Dorado. Filmed in the Peruvian rainforest, Machu Picchu, and along the Amazon, the grueling 5-week shoot became infamous, not because of the environment, but because of Kinski. The chaos began before cameras even rolled. Kinski called Herzog to accept the role after reading the screenplay. What followed was over an hour of incoherent screaming, which Herzog only later realized was Kinski on the other end of the line. Coming fresh off his Jesus Christ Savior tour, Kinski arrived on set behaving as a self-styled, misunderstood Jesus, a persona that quickly morphed into a rage-fueled Jesus whenever things didn't go his way. From the opening scene, Kinski found reasons to clash with Herzog. He loathed being part of a wide shot in the film's intro, complaining about not being the center of attention. Their biggest dispute, however, was over how Kinski's character Aguirre should be portrayed. Kinski envisioned a wild, ranting madman, while Herzog insisted on a quiet, menacing presence. Herzog's solution? He deliberately provoked Kinski before filming and waited for his fury to subside before rolling the camera, capturing the simmering rage beneath the surface. Of course, angering Kinski was hardly a challenge. He was perpetually infuriated. The set became a minefield of Kinski's unpredictable tantrums. When he forgot his lines, he scanned the crew for scapegoats, often targeting a cameraman with a grin or even Herzog himself, unleashing rants that lasted hours. His violent outbursts weren't limited to words. When extras found food near the set, Kinski inexplicably flew into a rage, wielding his sword and striking one actor so hard on the helmet that it caused significant bleeding. Without the helmet, the blow could have been fatal. In Herzog's My Best Fiend, the actor showed the scar he still carried from the incident. Kinski's most terrifying moment came one night when 45 extras and crew members gathered in a hut, relaxing with drinks and card games. Irritated by their merriment, Kinski fired a gun into the hut 3 times. Miraculously, only one extra lost a fingertip. It could have easily been a massacre, but for Kinski, this was just another day on set. The climax of Aguirre, the Wrath of God's challenging production, came when Klaus Kinski's frustrations reached their peak. After an incident with a technician, Kinski demanded the individual be removed from the set. When Werner Herzog refused, Kinski, deeply upset, packed his belongings and boarded a speedboat, declaring he was done with the production. Given Kinski's history of walking away from contracts, Herzog knew he had to intervene to save the film. Herzog confronted Kinski and told him firmly, "You can't do this. The movie is more important than our personal emotions, even more important than us as individuals." When Kinski continued insisting on leaving, Herzog added, "If you leave now, I will ensure you don't walk away from this production." Though Herzog had no means to enforce his claim, his conviction was enough to make Kinski reconsider. Kinski accused Herzog of being unreasonable and even called for authorities, but with no police within hundreds of miles, he ultimately decided to stay. Surprisingly, Kinski displayed a newfound discipline for the rest of the shoot, and despite the challenges, the film was completed. Though it struggled initially in Germany, it found a cult following in countries like Mexico, Venezuela, and Algeria. Eventually, it gained acclaim in the United States and United Kingdom, with critics praising Herzog's bold vision and Kinski's powerful performance. Today, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, holds a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a lasting testament to the artistry forged through this extraordinary collaboration. The next 2 Herzog-Kinski collaborations, Nosferatu the Vampire and Wojciech, both released in 1979, were far less explosive than their first partnership on Aguirre, The Wrath of God. That's not to say the productions were entirely smooth. Kinski's signature tantrums made their appearances, but nothing spiraled into the extremes of their earlier endeavor. In Nosferatu, the Vampire, Kinski took on the role of Count Dracula, delivering a hauntingly memorable performance. While his behavior on set included the usual arguments, there was a surprising calm during his interactions with Reiko Kruk, the Japanese makeup artist responsible for his Dracula transformation. Despite the grueling 4-hour makeup sessions required daily, Kinski worked with Kruk without incident, a rare and unexpected break from his usual outbursts. The film received critical acclaim, with praise directed at both Herzog's visionary direction and Kinski's eerie portrayal. Today, it boasts an impressive 95% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Just 5 days after wrapping Nosferatu, Herzog and the crew plunged into the next project, Wojciech. Exhausted from the previous shoot, the team braced for challenges, but Kinski managed to keep his disruptions relatively minor. In this adaptation of the famous stage play, Kinski starred as Franz Wojciech, a soldier who subjects himself to bizarre medical experiments to earn extra money, including a diet of nothing but peas, a descent into madness that mirrored Kinski's ability to embody complex, unstable characters. While the production didn't generate the same fireworks as Aguirre, it cemented Kinski's reputation for intense, compelling performances. Interestingly, not everyone found Klaus Kinski to be a perpetual storm of chaos. Eva Mattes, who starred opposite him in Wojciech, shared a surprisingly positive perspective. She described a calmer, warmer side to Kinski, calling him professional and kind in their interactions. On the last day of filming, when Mattes became emotional about the production ending, Kinski even hugged her, telling her he understood how she felt. A rare glimpse of humanity from the actor known for his explosive temperament. Even Werner Herzog acknowledged this duality in Kinski, admitting that while the actor could show genuine warmth, it often flickered out as quickly as his rage ignited. Despite the relative calm on set, Wojciech released to strong reviews, currently holding an 85% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Much of the praise, however, went to Eva Mattes for her exceptional performance, earning her the Best Supporting Actress award and solidifying her place in the spotlight. If you found this exploration of Kinski's career fascinating, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, let us know with a 0. We value your feedback. After the success of Nosferatu and Wojciech, Klaus Kinski found himself with a golden opportunity, the lead villain role in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But in true Kinski fashion, he turned it down, reportedly telling Steven Spielberg that the script was a boring pile of garbage. Instead, his next collaboration with Werner Herzog, Fitzcarraldo, 1982, would take him back to South America for another notoriously chaotic production, this time rivaling the madness of Aguirre. Filmed primarily in Peru, Fitzcarraldo cemented the idea that when Herzog, Kinski, and the Amazon collide, chaos is inevitable. The production was plagued by so much misfortune that it inspired its own acclaimed documentary, Burden of Dreams. Indigenous workers hired for the film were injured and some tragically lost their lives. In one instance, a raid by a scavenging tribe left 2 crew members with arrows lodged in their throats and stomachs. Miraculously, both survived. On top of that, 2 small plane crashes en route to the set resulted in 5 critical injuries, including 1 victim left paralyzed. The film's central prop, a massive ship crucial to the plot, caused countless additional injuries during its use. Yet amid all these real dangers and tragedies, Klaus Kinski managed to make things even worse. His trademark tantrums escalated, driven not just by his temper, but by a clear need to remain the center of attention. Whenever a major accident occurred and shifted focus away from him, Kinski would erupt in fury, ensuring that even during crises, his ego remained a priority. One particularly harrowing incident involved a lumber worker who was bitten by a highly venomous snake while cutting trees barefoot. Knowing that anti-venom was 20 minutes away and cardiac arrest could occur within minutes, the man made a split-second decision to save his own life. He used a saw to amputate his foot. Back at camp, the crew rushed to treat him, but Kinski, seeing the spotlight shift elsewhere, grew frustrated and threw a tantrum amid the chaos. The chaos of Fitzcarraldo's production wasn't limited to injuries and logistical nightmares. It was also fueled by Klaus Kinski's unrelenting need for attention. After a plane crash involving 6 crew members left the set shaken, Kinski threw a tantrum, not out of concern for the injured, but because his morning coffee wasn't hot enough. His mood swings reached new heights, with constant arguments erupting between him, Herzog, and the crew. Many of these outbursts are captured in Herzog's My Best Fiend, where Kinski is seen raging at the production manager over trivial issues like the quality of food. While the documentary only shows a few minutes of this, these tirades often lasted for hours. Herzog later revealed that his frustration boiled over to the point where he planned to burn down Kinski's cabin while he slept. He admitted he would have gone through with it had it not been for Kinski's dog, whose barking thwarted his approach. Reflecting on their volatile relationship, Herzog remarked at the Cannes premiere of My Best Fiend, "We had a great love, a great bond, but both of us planned to take each other out." Kinski's behavior even alarmed the indigenous extras on set, who were deeply disturbed by his violent and vulgar outbursts. Their culture, known for gentleness even during conflict, stood in stark contrast to Kinski's aggressive demeanor. Toward the end of the shoot, the chief of the indigenous group approached Herzog with a startling offer. They would kill Kinski for him. The offer was no joke, but Herzog declined, saying, "No, I still need him for shooting. Leave him to me." Herzog later used this palpable tension for a scene in the film where the natives gather around Kinski's character as he eats. The anger and unease on their faces are not acting, they are genuine. After filming wrapped, the chief confided to Herzog that while the extras feared Kinski's shouting, they were even more unnerved by Herzog's silence during it all. Fitzcarraldo premiered to good reviews, now holding a 77% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and has since become a beloved classic. Klaus Kinski's involvement, however, wasn't part of the original plan. Jason Robards was cast as the lead and had already filmed 40% of the movie before falling ill and dropping out. Jack Nicholson was considered next, but declined, leading Herzog to reluctantly bring Kinski on board. The crew, already wary of Kinski's volatile reputation, were disheartened knowing they'd have to start from scratch with him. Despite his on-screen portrayal of a man at one with nature, Kinski's relationship with the jungle was anything but harmonious. While he raved about the beauty of the Peruvian landscape, in reality, he avoided the jungle whenever possible, staying in camp unless required for a scene. On the rare occasion he ventured just 100 feet into the jungle, he brought along a photographer to maintain his image as a nature man. It was pure theatrics, a performance that extended far beyond the camera. Kinski's tantrums, however, remained very real. One such moment saw him raging at Herzog over a trivial issue. Herzog, unfazed, walked calmly to his hut, retrieved a hidden chocolate bar, highly coveted on the production, and ate it inches from Kinski's face. The absurdity of the act completely derailed Kinski's fury, leaving him momentarily stunned and diffusing the tension. But not everyone found Kinski's antics amusing. His outbursts unsettled the indigenous extras, whose culture valued gentleness even in conflict. So much so that the local chief approached Herzog with a startling offer to kill Kinski and end his disruptive behavior. Herzog declined, explaining, "I still need him for the film." Ironically, while the extras feared Kinski's yelling, they were even more unnerved by Herzog's stoic silence throughout the chaos, a reminder that the director's calm held its own kind of menace. Before Klaus Kinski reunited with Werner Herzog for their final collaboration, he took on the lead role in the 1986 horror film Crawl Space. Predictably, the production was a minefield of Kinski's infamous behavior. Director David Schmueller later captured the madness in a short film, Please Kill Mr. Kinski, 1999, where he recounted the nightmare in hilarious and jaw-dropping detail. It's a must-watch, sitting at just under 9 minutes, link in the description. The role in Crawl Space was written specifically for Kinski, with no other actor in mind. Unfortunately, Schmueller had no idea about Kinski's reputation until it was too late. Problems began immediately when Kinski threw a fit over the wardrobe, refusing to wear the costumes provided. Instead, he bought his own clothes, charged them to the production, and kept them afterward. Classic Kinski. Things only went downhill from there. By day 3, Kinski had instigated 6 fistfights with crew members, causing significant delays. Schmueller and the producers agreed he needed to be replaced, but the distribution company funding the project refused, insisting that Kinski stay. On day 4, the film's Italian producer approached Schmueller with a chilling solution: kill Kinski for the insurance money. He was dead serious. Schmueller, horrified, relayed the suggestion to the film's American producer, whose response was a casual bummer. While no action was taken, the tension on set hit new levels. By day 5, Kinski discovered plans to potentially fire him and declared war on Schmueller. Determined not to be another director who quit under Kinski's reign of terror, Schmueller dug in his heels. The absurdity continued when Kinski demanded that the word action, a staple of filmmaking, never be used again. Instead, directors had to say Klaus to signal the start of a scene. Inevitably, just a day later, Kinski exploded again, shouting, "Klaus, Klaus, Klaus." All my life, directors have called Klaus his new demand. Absolute silence. Filming could only start when he decided he was ready. A delay repeated 3 to 4 times a day. As filming for Crawl Space dragged on, the crew began muttering a plea to director David Schmueller, "Please kill Mr. Kinski." It became a running joke, albeit one laced with genuine frustration as everyone on set reached their breaking point with Kinski's outrageous behavior. Near the end of production, the tantrums continued. When Schmueller said cut to end a scene, Kinski erupted into another fit, screaming, "Cut, cut, cut! I've made over 200 movies, and directors are always yelling cut." When Schmueller cautiously asked what to say instead, Kinski barked, "Don't say anything. I'll stop when I'm finished." Kinski's demands didn't end there. He outright refused to say any lines he didn't like, regardless of how integral they were to the plot. This led to scenes that barely made sense by the time the film wrapped. Unsurprisingly, Crawl Space bombed upon release, earning scathing reviews and currently holding a 17% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. In a 2011 interview, Schmueller stood by every word of his short film, Please Kill Mr. Kinski, insisting that none of it was exaggerated and that Kinski was entirely responsible for his own mythos. It begs the question of how many other productions suffered from Kinski's chaos, stories that may never come to light. The following year, in 1987, Klaus Kinski reunited with Werner Herzog for their 5th and final collaboration, Cobra Verde. Kinski played a slave trader who journeys to West Africa, with filming taking place in Brazil, Colombia, and Ghana. By this point, their infamously turbulent relationship had reached its breaking point. While the production wasn't as thoroughly documented as their previous films, Kinski's behavior was reportedly so unbearable that Herzog vowed never to work with him again. The curtain was closing on one of the most volatile partnerships in cinema history. Thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive into Kinski's madness. Leave a 2 in the comments if you're still here, and we'll know you're part of the journey. The chaos of Cobra Verde was no less intense than previous Herzog-Kinski collaborations. Klaus Kinski's outbursts were so frequent and violent that they left a lasting visual, the iconic image of Kinski gripping Herzog by the throat on set. The original cinematographer, Thomas Mauck, endured so much verbal abuse from Kinski that he ultimately walked away from the project. Despite the turmoil, the film was released to critical acclaim, earning an 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and cementing itself as a powerful conclusion to the volatile Herzog-Kinski partnership. In 1989, Klaus Kinski directed his first and only film, Paganini, in which he also starred as the 19th century violin virtuoso and rumored devil violinist, Niccolò Paganini. Kinski had long pushed Werner Herzog to direct the film, but Herzog refused, claiming the script was unfilmable. In truth, Herzog was likely finished with Kinski for good. Left to helm the project himself, Kinski created a production as chaotic as his reputation. Actress Tosca d'Aquino, who worked alongside Kinski on Paganini, described her experience as a nightmare. "I suffered the harassment of Kinski's very difficult nature," she recalled. "Looking back, I would not make this film again because I suffered a lot. He was a very violent man, bossy, and I had bruises. Kinski's aggressive tendencies and domineering behavior left their mark, turning what could have been a career highlight into a traumatic ordeal for those involved." When Paganini was finally released, it received mixed reviews, with critics divided on Kinski's vision and execution. The film marked the end of his cinematic career, leaving behind a legacy of brilliance, madness, and controversy that continues to fascinate and disturb in equal measure. On November 23, 1991, Klaus Kinski passed away from a sudden heart attack at his home in California, aged 65. At the time, he was a cult favorite, revered for his intense performances, spoken-word albums, and publicized on-set antics. However, it wasn't until the release of My Best Fiend, 1999, and Please Kill Mr. Kinski, that the full extent of his volatile behavior became widely known. For some, these documentaries elevated Kinski's status as a cult figure, while others found the praise for his persona deeply unsettling. Kinski's legacy took a darker turn in 2013 when his eldest daughter, Paula Kinski, published her autobiography, Kindermund, From a Child's Mouth. In it, she accused her father of mistreating her in deeply inappropriate ways from the ages of 5 to 19. Paula revealed that she could no longer remain silent while the world continued to praise a man who, in her words, was a deeply troubled individual. Her sister, Nastasia Kinski, supported Paula's claims, calling her brave and saying, "My sister is a heroine because she has freed her heart, her soul, and her future from the weight of the secret." Nastasia stated that while she was not subjected to the same treatment, Kinski's behavior toward her as a child made her deeply uncomfortable and fearful, describing him as an unpredictable and controlling figure. The revelations complicated Kinski's legacy, transforming him from an enigmatic, volatile genius into a deeply polarizing figure. While his extraordinary talent is undeniable, the allegations against him leave a difficult moral dilemma. How do we separate the artist from the art? This debate echoes the controversies surrounding figures like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski. Can we still admire Kinski's collaborations with Werner Herzog, masterpieces that required the efforts of countless cast and crew, without condoning the man himself? Or does engaging with his work feel like an implicit endorsement of his actions? Kinski's life and career remain a stark reminder of the tension between artistry and morality, leaving audiences to wrestle with these questions individually. For now, his films stand as a testament to both the brilliance and complexity that defined him, while the stories of those he hurt remind us of the cost of that legacy.